Kids in 2010 didn't just get an easy question number one, they got an easy question number two. So you might even remember we did this. This was the first AP question I ever showed you guys in class, and I think I even told you it's probably one of the easiest questions ever. So you have to write a complete class. There's no part A, B, or C. It's called an AP line, and it's just kind of like general equation of a line: ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. From there, you can figure out things like slope and if a point's on the line. And so, like I said, don't get too hung up reading the directions, right? We're looking for the most important things. So some of the stuff I have highlighted here, your implementation has to have a constructor that it takes 3 integer parameters representing A, B, and C in that order. And the A, B, and C that they're referring to, right? A is the coefficient of X, B is the coefficient of Y, and C is the constant term. We can't change that. We're working by their rules. And we see right here, APLine is a new APLine, and it's got 3 ints handed to it. Nowhere in here does it tell us to make instance fields, and it doesn't tell us to make them private. But you might remember we did this rubric together in class, and if you didn't make your instance fields private, you lost a point. A 9-point problem. That's a big deal. So we have to know to do things that maybe aren't even asked of us. However, it doesn't look like this is going to be a part of the 2020 exam. So we get to assume that A and B are not 0, so we don't have to worry about dividing by 0. That is kind of like a favorite trick of the College Board, is to set you up to divide by 0, but they actually eliminated that here in this year. We need a get slope method, and they tell us the formula earlier for get slope is just negative A over B. Note that it is a double. Their examples actually give decimals. So if we're storing A, B, and C as ints, like they kind of implied here, we may get tricked when we go to write our get slope method. And then finally, if you look at the is online method, it's going to take in 2 parameters, and they serve as the values for X and for Y. So the first value comes in, there's your X, right? A times X. And the second value comes in there, that's your B times Y. Okay, so these look like an X and a Y value. All right, pretty straightforward class, right? We're not extending, we're not inheriting or implementing any interfaces, anything like that. So just public class APLine. It doesn't really say anything about instance fields, but we're going to need to hand off those values from the constructor if we want to use them later in the class. So it makes sense to go ahead and initialize, or at least declare at this point, 3 private ints. And then our constructor for the APLine class, which by their rule has to accept 3 ints, could simply hand those off. And I'll just give them slightly different names so they don't shadow anything. A is going to be initialized with AA, B is going to be initialized with BB, and C is going to be initialized by CC. All right, so from this point going forward, I want to use my instance fields, single A, single B, single C, in any calculations that I'm doing, right? Double A, double B, double C get destroyed at the closing brace of that constructor, effectively garbage collected. So I need to write a double return method called getSlope. It has to be parameterless according to their sample code, and it needs to return negative A divided by B. But there's a catch, right? So the catch is, if I do that, I'm dividing 2 ints. I need to introduce somewhere a double. You can do this a few ways, like one little trick. You could do negative 1.0 times A divided by B. You could slip in double in parentheses. You got a couple of options. And then we need to write a Boolean method is on line. This method accepts 2 parameters. They represent an XY coordinate plane, ordered pair. And then all we need to do is figure out if we plug those into our standard form equation. So A times X plus B times Y plus C, do we get back 0? That's the only way that XY can be on the line. And let's give it a run. This is a good problem. You can take a little time here and go look up the rubric for this question, and you can find it online pretty easily. They're not hidden. And what they're going to be looking at in that rubric is how do your signatures look, right? Are your methods named correctly? Do they have the correct return types? Are the parameter types appropriate? Does your constructor accept 3-ints? Did you make your instance fields private? Did you initialize them correctly? Did you use the correct formula? Did you remember to introduce a double to the division? All those little things like that. But overall, pretty easy question. So this one you should have already known.